Let's get ready to rumble!
Yo, just been watching the Haye and David Chiisora press conference. And it went kind of smooth. It was smooth still. They still got the iron fence separating them. Me. And it all went smooth. Wasn't much profanity there except when Derek did broke out and said, yeah, I'm going to fuck him up. And in response to Derek saying that Haye is not a natural heavyweight, Haye said, well, if Derek stripped all the blubber off him, you'll see if he's a natural heavyweight or not. That was quite funny, you know. However, they was both in agreement on one thing, and that's with Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko, who have been giving disapproving views and taking jabs at the fight. And they both said basically is them and is it K2 Promotions who promote them, they don't want nobody else to make money in the heavyweight division, basically, you know? And nobody's really interested in their fights. That's the bottom line, yeah? I mean, Vladimir argues that Haye and Chiisora are Klitschko rejects, yeah? And that their fight doesn't really have no meaning or value in terms of world championship, heavyweight boxing, ratings, etc. Okay then, so how comes Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti were never the elite fighters in their divisions, and yet their trilogy is some of the most heralded and immortalized shit that's ever taken place in boxing? So that argument doesn't mean shit, yeah? Because when you live in a Western capitalistic system, it doesn't matter what your product is if you can't sell it. If you can't sell it, then it's obsolete, basically. I mean, Vladimir is the super heavyweight champion, right? The WBA super heavyweight champion. To be a super champion in any division, you have to have first initially won the normal WBA belt. I think if you take, maybe, is it the WBC or IBF belt with it, I'm not sure about WBO, then you become a super champion. That's how that works. Povetkin holds the lesser regarded version of the WBA belt, yeah? Now, how are you going to be saying you're the premier heavyweight? You should be screaming out Povetkin's name, saying that little bitch pretending he's a heavyweight champion. What? What? Force him out. Smoke him out of his hole. Don't let him, Teddy Atlas, deny that fight happening. Yeah? Smoke him out of his hole. But you're not doing that. Who are you going to fight next? I mean, the other day they named Vitaly's next opponent, and I can't remember who this guy is. I've never seen him fight. Never seen him fight. Who is he? You can't sell combat sports like that. You know what I mean? You have to raise the testosterone level. You know what I mean? You got to make people want to come and see you outside of Germany and the Ukraine. I mean, they got some documentary film coming out, the Klitschkos. Let me tell you both this now. Nobody gives a fuck about it. Nobody gives a fuck about it. I'm speaking for all the people outside of Ukraine or Germany. They don't give a fuck about that. It's the truth. It's the truth. It's not like Tyson's documentary. You know what I mean? Where you were just sitting there locked in, listening to Mike's stories. You know, how he gave fellatio to that woman in the fucking bathroom in that party. The way he addressed Robin Givens. The way he addressed the Desiree Washington situation. Talking about how he stomped out Don King. You know? Talking about the fear he feels before he fights an opponent. How he dreams that the opponent beats him up and then he goes in the ring and does the business. You know what I mean? Your documentary don't mean shit to no one. I mean, yeah, okay. When I've got a spare hour or so, yeah, I'll look at your documentary on YouTube. Yeah, of course I will. I'll probably forward through big parts of it. But it's not a priority. And I'm not saying you have to go into press conferences in combat gear with AK-47s and kick over tripods and cameras. But you're going to have to call people out. Look, to a degree, Haye versus Chiisora is a freak show. David didn't come nowhere near beating Vladimir. Yeah? But at the same time, Vladimir fought David Haye like he was fighting Sonny Liston or George Foreman. You know? Vitaly fought most of the Chiisora bout on the back foot. You know what I mean? In fear of his health. And what these big Russian heavyweights have to factor in to their markability and selling points is it's okay for me because I understand how boxing works. There's a technique to shit. But to the average person who doesn't fanatically watch boxing like me, yeah, they look at it like, yo, you're 6'7". You're fighting someone 6'2", 6'3", and you're running from them and you're not knocking them out. That's what it looks like to them. That was the appeal to Mike Tyson. Tyson was 5'10", 5'11", and he does it out, man, 6'4", 6'5", 6'3", putting him on the deck. I mean, unless you're on Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Mayweather, on that level of defensive genius, a counter-punching genius, then it's hard to sell to us. I mean, Bert Sugar was a purist. He hated the Klitschko's, hated watching them. Why isn't Vitaly saying, look, I'm going to fight the winner of the freak show, and I'm going to show the world what real boxing is like? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Oh, this fight shouldn't go ahead. The freak show is bad for boxing. They're bad examples. Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody. Except a few clowns who nobody cares about. Like one guy in the press conference was trying to read the riot act to Derek Chiisora, talking about, are you going to behave yourself in the ring because the Britain needs this and that. Dude, you look sick. You sounded retarded. You sounded retarded. Yeah? I mean, Frank Warren wanted to laugh at the guy. Derek Chiisora just stared with his wide open like, what's the matter with him? It was so stupid, some guy had to translate what he meant because he was just going into this rambling little bitch. What happened in Munich happened months ago. Yeah? The only person who got injured is actually in favor of the fight, and that was Adam Booth. So if he's not bawling about it, and he was in the middle of it getting his head bust, why are you bitching about it? I don't get it. A few cameras and tripods got mashed up. Big deal. Big deal. And I'm going to come out and say it straight. Derek Chiisora is not all there, yeah? And I should actually take this up with the bookmakers. I really should. Either in the fight itself or after the fight, Derek's going to do something mad. He's going to flip out and he's going to do something mad. Yeah? He's going to violate either a boxing rule during the fight or he's going to flip and do something before or after the final bell. Yeah? Let's make no mistake. We want to see this fight for its artistic merits, yeah. But this is car crash boxing. Yeah? No doubt about that. But the heavyweight division has been so dull. So dull. We're just grateful to take this. It's not like Ali versus Frazier or Ali versus Foreman or Holyfield versus Tyson or Tua versus Ibaboshi where we're weighing up the fistic merits. Holyfield versus Lewis. It's not like that. This is nothing like that. Norton versus Holmes. This is nothing like that. This ain't that kind of fight. But this is the best we can get, and we'll take it. We'll take it gladly. Because Tony Thompson, no. And I can't, who's the guy that Vitaly's fighting? I don't want to box record. I mean, if I remember by the time this video finishes, I will interrupt whatever I'm saying and I'll mention the guy's name. I don't want a box record. I want to remember it off the top of my head, but I can't. Because this guy is a nobody. Because look, just off the top of my head, I'm not reading out no rankings. If he hasn't beat Seth Mitchell, if he hasn't beat Chiisora, Haye, if he hasn't beat Chris Arreola, if he hasn't beat that guy Wack, Fury, David Price, Hellenius, Valueth, Holyfield, he hasn't done enough to merit mentioning. Yeah? Simple as that. I just want to run through Saturday's action. In my boxing roundup, when I was announcing the Randall Bailey-Mike Jones fight, you could go look back at it, what I said. I said boxing news favour Mike Jones to win. And yeah, I agree. I agree with that. He's favoured to win. But I said, well, I know. You better watch out for the power, dude. You better watch out for the power. Yeah, Bailey struck. And he struck hard. You know? Somebody commented on my video that Bailey's a journeyman. I said, he hasn't got journeyman punching power. He's got elite boxer punching power. That's all I know. You know what I mean? And he proved it. Riggando, guy's got a lot of moves. Got some serious moves. You know what I mean? No doubt about that. You need to see him in a super fight soon. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. Timothy Bradley and Manny Pacquiao. Now, let's get to these Pacquiao fans. And I'm going to be friendly today. I'm not going to call you Pac-Tots. Yeah? You are the only set of boxing fans talking about you're going to walk away from boxing because it's so corrupt. Because your man lost. You see, did you notice that Mexican boxing fans didn't say that? When their man Marcus got robbed against Pacquiao, they didn't say they was going to walk away from boxing. Why? Because they have a stake in this shit. Yeah? They have a stake. They have past champions, great champions. Ruben Olivares, Chavez Sr. You know the names. They have champs standing today. Antonio DeMarco, is it? Canelo, Chavez Jr. They've got fighters today. They have a stock in the game. Yeah? They don't put all their eggs in the one-man Will Marquez basket. So yeah, they voiced their disapproval about the decision, but they move on. Same with black boxing fans. When Pernell Whitaker got robbed against Chavez Sr., against De La Hoya, against Jose Luis Ramirez, you didn't hear African Americans or black fans in general saying, yeah, we're through with boxing because of that. No, you didn't hear that. You didn't hear that. Because the African Americans, they still had Tyson. They still had Terry Norris. They still had Evander Holyfield, Roy Jones, Hopkins, James Toney, etc., etc. So that's a pussy move. If you think you're breaking any revelations to anybody that boxing is corrupt, buddy, you're wrong. It's been corrupt for a minute. Yeah? So you wasn't screaming about it until your man got hit with something you didn't like. So, if you're going to go, just go. Just go. Just go. Now, the more controversial aspect of that fight to me is the fact that Pacquiao, who, just like me and you, must realize that the public glare right now is on boxing and PEDs. PEDs is the hottest topic in boxing right now. Yeah? Floyd Mayweather's in jail. So Pacquiao is the main figurehead. He's the face of boxing right now. Yeah? Pacquiao is fighting an unbeaten champion in his own right, in Timothy Bradley. This is a high-profile fight. And in a fight of this magnitude, are you telling me that the pound for pound number one in some people's eyes, number two in others, you're telling me he didn't have enough knowledge as an ambassador of the sport? He didn't think it was important for him to be a role model or an example for boxing. Say, look, This is how an elite level fighter does. Look, clean a bomber clot. Let's move on. You see, but while he's winning catchweight bouts and doing all this shit, you Pacquiao fans didn't care. Yeah? You didn't give a shit. So fuck you. Now I'm going to keep it real. And I'm not just going to leave Manny out there to dry by himself. Yeah? Timothy Bradley said drug testing never once came up in negotiations for this fight. Never once. Now, Tim Bradley is an intelligent young man. An intelligent young man. He's a young man who's aware of his surroundings and what's happening around him. He has an awareness of his place in the boxing game, his place as a father, his place as a man. So, this guy's held belts. He's fought unification fights. All of a sudden, you come into a fight, earning your biggest purse, 5, 6 million, whatever, yeah? You're fully aware that this is a massive topic in boxing. And you didn't want to show you was clean either. There's something wrong with that. It's not like it's Scram Jones, the promoter down the road, who can barely cover his overheads when he's putting on a card. So, you know what I mean? He's not going to call Vada or USADA because he can't afford it. You guys, no excuse. No excuse. You know? I mean, fuck the belts. If you want to save money on the drug testing, don't give them no sanctioning fees. Fight for no belt. Yeah? Because the fans don't give a shit about belts. Let me tell you that now. We don't give a shit about judges' decisions, and we don't give a shit about belts. That's the truth of it. Take the money. Take that sanctioning fee money and use it to cover the cost of the drug testing. Any promotion with Don King, Bob Arum, Lou DiBella, Frank Warren, any main promoter, has to have one of them two bodies doing the testing compulsory. Until there's a way that you can feed the procedure down to the promoters and boxing cards who are functioning on a lower budget. That's how it has to go. That's how it has to go. But right now, this model of professional boxing, no, it's not perfect. With the decisions, with the drug taking, whatever, it's not perfect. But it's the best we got. Because the only other option is unlicensed boxing. Yeah, that's the only other option. Because boxing ain't going nowhere. It ain't going nowhere. You know, you and your friends can pick up boxing gloves, gum shields, and you can go in a car park, the park round the corner, a garage, and you can hold fights. You can have people betting on them. You can have promoters, financial backers, purses. It's like drugs. It's easy to manufacture and easy to produce. It's a no-brainer. You're not going to get rid of this because you're crying over a decision that went against your man, talking about you're not a boxing fan no more. Well, go. Well, go. Like it's going to miss you. It's not going to miss you. It ain't going to miss me. You know what I'm saying? Because men are always going to want to see men competing in hand-to-hand combat. You're not going to stop that. You're not going to stop that. I remember when I was first aware of women's boxing. And I'm just going to put my hands up. I didn't like it. Didn't like it. I hated it. Hated watching it. But now, I watch women's boxing. You know what I mean? I watch it. And some of them are fucking good. See, you have to allow yourself to be wrong sometimes. You have to allow that. It's just if you've got the balls or maturity to admit, yeah, okay, I was wrong. And some of them female boxers are maternal women. Some of them are not. Not all women are maternal. Not all women want to be treated like the helpless rose in the garden. Not all women want that. You know what I mean? Some women don't want to get married in relationships. They just want you to come around a couple of times and bang them and get out of their space. You know what I mean? They don't need you around all the time. You know? And some women can fight. I've had to come to them realizations. Like, I spoke to women and they said, what's the matter with this guy that they're seeing? Because they've told these men they don't want nothing too deep. Just come round, do the business, and you go back to your spot, and she just holds the ground in hers. And a lot of these guys can't handle it. They can't handle it. You know what I mean? Like, I see all these guys making videos about women of today, how they're fucked up and this and that. And look, it's just like the PEDs in boxing. This is the new phenomenon. Yeah? PEDs. And these women are the new phenomenon. You gotta adapt to the game, baby. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna control no woman, or at least the majority of women brought up in a westernized capitalistic system. Just ain't gonna happen no more. Them days are done. You know what I mean? The chances of your marriage lasting over 5 years is slimmer than that chick advertising Calvin Klein jeans, as Jay-Z said. Like women's football. To be honest, I've tried to watch it, but they're so crap. I think the women boxers are a bit more advanced than the female footballers. I tell a lie though, the Brazilian women were actually coordinated footballers. I remember back in the 80s, in the late 80s, I was watching midweek sports special. That just sounds antiquated to say that now. And they put I think it was a kickboxing. Was it kickboxing or normal boxing? 2 females. I remember one of the women's name was Ann Quinlan. I can't remember if she got knocked out or the other girl got knocked out. And it was a dramatic knockout. Like, blam! I think it was normal boxing. It was normal boxing. And Reg Guttridge was outraged because it was 2 women. He was outraged. You know what I mean? And you didn't see women's boxing come on TV for years in the UK after that. For years. You know what I mean? And even now, you rarely see it on television. You rarely see it on there. But you know, you have to get over your prejudicial bullshit. No one cares. No one cares that you don't want to watch boxing no more. I don't care if all boxers get caught with PEDs. I don't give a shit. Because I'll just accept that as part of the sport. I don't give a shit. I don't care if there's a bad decision every week. Because the way I see it, they're just free judges. They're free people out of the potential millions who can be watching the bout. So what they've got to say? So what? If they fucking come up with a score that you don't agree, so what? So what? So what? I mean, back in the day, in the early part of the 19th century, the newspapers used to render a lot of boxing decisions, not judges. And you can't tell me they always had the boxer who rightly deserved the decisions, interests at heart. I'm sure there was a lot of corruption there. Yeah? So a lot of times you box rec and you see one of them old fighters back in the day and you see newspaper decision, no contest. Or it was declared a draw. A lot of times somebody won, but they called it a draw. Or no contest. Or a newspaper rendered the verdict. Yeah? I mean, even if you put money on these events and you lose, this is entertainment. That's what it is. It's entertainment. Yeah? You need to get over yourself. Being a fan of boxing is not a life or death situation. It's not as important as a lot of the issues around the world. Political issues and social issues. And that's the truth of it. Yeah, voice your disapproval at the corruption. You know what I mean? And something needs to be done about it. Yeah? And some Pacquiao fans were even trying to blame Mayweather that man he lost. You know, you sound ridiculous. Just go. You're never boxing fans anyway. Anyone who says that, anyone who says, I'm not watching boxing no more because it's corrupt, he was never a boxing fan. Because as Bert Sugar said, Boxing ran out of respectability in the year 1912. So get over yourself. I haven't heard nobody speak up for a Jose Alucigin from the UK, who's been overlooked his title shot for 4 years. Nobody spoke up for him. What about his injustices? But yo, it's one of them things. He hasn't got the machine behind him. He hasn't managed to create enough of a buzz about himself. So that's how it goes. You know what I mean? If he had a fan base behind him, then he'd have a better standing on it. But if we're talking in regards to fairness and mandatory contenders, he should have got his shot. But that's how it goes. Even if you got the machine working for you, there's no guarantee that people are not going to conspire against you. Pacquiao is fighting all these big profile fights and not getting tested. So look, maybe the powers that be said, look, there's too much accusations coming at the guy. And it's not just Floyd Mayweather fans pointing the finger. It's time that we just dump him off now. We've already juiced him out for our own means. I mean, just sign him off now. And you know, that's a possible scenario of what happened to the guy. The other scenario is the judges just tallied up the scorecard and it came to what it came to, yeah? HBO has a lot to do with the propaganda that's being spread today in the aftermath of that fight. You know? The other scenario is, so what if he got robbed? He's not the first boxer to get robbed. Let us move on. In saying that, as a black man who has been on the wrong end of racism and has had to fight that shit, yeah, I will empathize with some of Pacquiao's fans who are Filipino. The Philippines is basically a country that has been decimated by colonialism and capitalism, sweatshops, poverty, child prostitution, mostly from what middle-aged European men benefit from. No, I'm just saying that. Don't want to drag it into a race issue. I'm not doing that. It's just the truth. It's just the fucking truth, right? Let's put that out there. The Spanish and the Americans both took all they could out of the country, and they are the primary reason there is so much crime and poverty and despair over there. I mean, Pacquiao's a politician over there, yeah? It's politics. So I can see why the Pacquiao fans hang on to Pacquiao so hard. I can see why. Because the crime rate in certain areas actually lowers in the Philippines when Pacquiao fights. So this loss against Bradley, I have no clue to what it's done to the morale of that country. A country, like I said, has been decimated by Europeans. You know what I mean? Has been left to rot. But it's funny how they have more hate for black people who have never took their resources and exploited their people, put them in sweatshops so big multi-corporations can benefit. They have more hate for us than they do for the people who've actually fucked them up. That's how fucked up a lot of them are in the brain. Yeah? And they treat the darker skinned Filipinos like shit out there. Just like in India, where you have the undesirables. They're treated like fucking shit. Worse than shit. That's the effects of self-hate and colonialism. Yeah? Same traits you find in Afro-Caribbean blacks and African blacks in England or African Americans in the USA. Yeah? Same thing you find in West Africa and Jamaica with all the skin bleaching and shit like that. Self-hatred. But as a man who has a wider third eye than that, I will look past the racism and I will empathize with your situation. Not sympathize, I will empathize with your situation. Because I can relate it to my dad and my mum when they first came to the UK. And my dad came from Jamaica, and it was the Jamaicans who were the first to physically fight back against racial bullshit from the Teddy Boys. And my dad was part of that. He was in the front page of newspapers and shit. You know what I mean? Fighting back. You had the rivers of blood speech, murders. There was a lot of problems getting accommodation. There was no problem getting jobs though, because a lot of not all the English people, but a lot of the English people thought they had an entitlement to certain things, which no one does. And how I can relate it, because during oppression like that, you still have downtime with your family and your friends. You have the dance hall and them thing there, you know what I mean? You have your dominoes. You got sport. So when the West Indies used to play England in cricket, and we used to beat them 5-0, and they used to call it the blackwash, you know what I mean? Like, you could just see the joy. I mean, because I weren't into cricket, I just see the joy in my dad's face, in his friend's face, when they used to come over, or we used to go over to their yard. It was just joy. You know what I mean? Because that's what racism does. It builds tribalism. So I understand with the Pacquiao fans. It's like when there was a Jamaican fighter who used to fight in Britain by the name of Joe Bygraves, and he knocked out Henry Cooper in 7. And any time my dad used to tell me that story, you could just see the excitement. Yeah, and Bygraves to deal with him and all. I mean, yeah. Same thing with Joe Louis in America, especially in the Schmeling fight. You know, like when Joe was fighting, I'm sure that all of America had their ears close to the radio, but Black America definitely did. They definitely did. And you can hear Bill Cosby tell stories about it. Because after Joe detonated his bombs and took out Schmeling, you know what I mean? He was their superhero. He was like the battery in their back, like they could go to work with some pride. Yeah, to feel good about themselves, because they was basically living in apartheid at that time. It's like when Mark Kaler knocked out Errol Christie, and in the build-up there was a lot of race hate in the 80s in London. You know? A whole heap. And for the working class white guy on the road, that was just like a boost for them, you know what I mean? It was like a boost. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was just a young kid at the time, and I was working in a warehouse. And that racism spread into where we was working, and it brought up divisions. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So I get where the tribalism from the Pacquiao fans come from to a degree. And we all have our prejudices and racial stereotypes and things we don't like about other people, you know? But if you're a boxing fan, you have to have the same rules for other fighters that you do for your own. Because when you get into a situation like this, no one's going to show you no mercy. But it's a very thin line to separate racism from out of the sport. It is a very thin line, because the Ukraine are hosting the football European Championships. And a lot of people are coming out saying it's shocking how the fans are treating the black players, and they're threatening to kill black people if they come over to support their teams and shit like that. And they'll say things like, oh, racism hasn't got no place in the sport. Well, if it's got a place in everyday life, how the fuck hasn't it got a place in sport? Of course it's going to find a home there. That's like you keeping your house clean and spotless, but there's takeaway shops all around you everywhere, and their hygiene and sanitation isn't the best. You're going to get rats and mice in your house and infestations, regardless. My attitude has been so far, I'm not even going to watch the tournament, because I don't want to see black players get the monkey chants thrown at them for the sake of watching football. It's not that important to me. Like I say, it's sport. It's not that important to me. If it's that important to people that they're going to throw bananas and racial chants, and you're going to threaten to kill people, keep the tournament. you have it for yourself. Just have it for yourself. You know what I mean? I'll just opt out. Okay, let's step away from the race issue now. Boxing is a unique sport, especially as a combat sport. In a combat sport, you can just end the fight in 10 seconds. If you get it right, you can knock someone out quick. And you're in the shower before you're barely in the ring. And you've won. With other sports, like football. If it's 1-0 at the end, it's 1-0. It doesn't matter if the goal was offside or you need goal line technology. If it's given as a goal, that's what it is. It's 1-0. It doesn't matter who was the better team. It's 1-0. That's it. With boxing, you can outbox the man, outpunch the man, and still lose on the scorecards. That's why I can see why there'll be a big majority of us who wants to clean up the PEDs. But I don't see what you can do about judging. I really don't, because there's people who thought Floyd Mayweather lost against Miguel Cotto. And they really believe that. And you think, wow. And there's people who think Timothy Bradley genuinely deserved his win. You know? And they thought Pacquiao got outboxed. There's people who thought Pacquiao won the fight easily. And even if he did win, I listened to the HBO commentary and I'm like, Jim Lampley, no, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. There's no way Pacquiao boxed as well as you said he did. There's just no way. He didn't. Neither did Bradley. And according to people who said he won, he didn't look that good either. Judging fights is always going to be a subjective endeavor. There's no running away from that. There's no running away from that. I mean, Pacquiao's made his loot out of the sport. He's comfortable for life. But do you realize there's been some good boxers out there who have trained hard and have had ambition that they want to be the best boxer out there. And they did all the right things. They didn't take PEDs. They trained hard. They ate right. They lived a life. They went up in that ring. They fought their hearts out. And they outpunched. They outboxed their opponent. And they was on the wrong end of a decision. And it maybe happened to them once, twice, 3 times. And after that, they got discouraged. And they became journeymen. So now they're virtually risking their health in the knowledge that they're going to be earning peanuts from now. Yeah? Because they're journeymen. They're put in there to lose. Some had to quit their dreams and quit the game. I mean, who's really made the Don Kings and the Bob Arums their money? Okay, you can say Muhammad Ali, you can say Pacquiao, you can say Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather to a degree, even though he's doing his own thing now. You can name all these top boxers. But if it wasn't for these so-called journeymen, saving promotions, coming in at the last minute, some of them even walk out of the crowd to save a promotion. Yeah? Where they'd have to be cancelled. I mean, fighting for peanuts to prop up some unbeaten record or some young buck. It's them making all their money. What's the contingency plan for them? There's none. How do you think they feel when they win decisions and get robbed? And they were fighting for next to nothing. So they was really fighting for professional pride. A lot of these guys get paid peanuts, but their mind state is, yo, I might not get the verdict. And I might not even be able to beat this guy fair and square, but I want to go the distance. That's an achievement for them, for a proper journeyman. Not only that, if they do get KO'd, then they can't fight for how long? 2 months, 3 months? And some of them need to fight more often than that. You know? This is real shit. Because to me, a journeyman isn't someone who just goes in there and gets KO'd all the time, you know? A journeyman is someone who can provide that young, unbeaten prospect some challenges. You know, journeyman like Lindsey Morgan, who could give a contender some good rounds, give him a good workout before he goes on to fight for a belt. You know, that's a journeyman. And don't get it twisted. Lindsey Morgan might have been a journeyman, but he earned decent purses for what he could do. And apparently, he invested his money pretty well. And he's doing all right. He's doing a lot better than a lot of ex-champions. So don't get it twisted. They do have some status. And there's some boxers who even have status below that, who they're just brought in because they're bums. They'll just get blown away. Not all journeymen are bums. Yeah? Randy Smith, Sanderline Williams, Emmanuel Augustus, even Peter Buckley from the UK. He wasn't that bad. If you watched him and you didn't know his record, you'd say, well, he doesn't look like someone who could lose 200 plus fights. No, he didn't have no great hand speed. No, he wasn't great. But he could throw a jab and he had a decent defense. You know? He was fairly well coordinated. I think he only got stopped 4 times in maybe 250 odd bouts. How much promotions do you think Peter Buckley saved? And look, I'm not naive enough to say he deserves millions because of that. You know? He fought to his level and he got paid what he got paid. Basically, we all get paid what we think we're worth. We all get paid what we negotiate. And that's the bottom line of it, really. I'm just trying to say, let's put this shit into a little bit of perspective when we see the boxers that we hold in esteem get a decision that we don't agree with. Let's just put it in perspective. I need to clear a couple of things up in my last boxing roundup. Antonio Marco Pereira, he didn't wear Tapia on his trunks because of his affiliation with Johnny Tapia. Tapia is actually part of his name, so I got that wrong. And another thing is, I got a personal message from somebody who a Pacquiao fan would probably call a Flomo. And they're literally saying that I accused Floyd of taking drugs. No, I read out the letter as it was wrote. I didn't accuse anybody of anything. The only thing was when I probed the question to answer Jeff Mayweather, Floyd's uncle, when he said Floyd trained so hard, why would he cheat? All I said was the same reason why anyone else would cheat, because there's millions at stake. I didn't actually say Floyd cheated. I'm just saying that's an incentive for why people cheated. Come on, man. Floyd's the one who's been pushing for all this drug testing. You know what I mean? Wasn't he the first to use VADA or USADA or one of the two? I didn't accuse him of that. So I've got all that cleared up. I want to read you out a letter from one of my favorite boxing journalists and historians. His name is Nigel Collins. And bear in mind, this was written before the Pacquiao-Bradley fight. And it's titled, "The Fix is In." Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The ugly truth that hardly anybody wants to face head on. Fixed fights are not a thing of the past. They still take place with sickening regularity. It's just they do it differently these days. Back in the 40s and 50s, when organized crime figures such as Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo controlled boxing in the United States, the preferred method was bribing or intimidating fighters into taking a dive. And I just got to interject for a minute, because this used to happen in the East End with the gangsters of them times in the 50s, 60s, post-war Britain, same thing. So let's pick it up from when Frankie Carbo and Blinky Palermo controlled boxing in the United States. The preferred method was bribing or intimidating and making fighters take dives. Today, shadowy individuals wielding pencils do much of the dirty work. seemingly marking their scorecards with something in mind other than what takes place inside the ring. There's an old boxing saying about a fight being close enough to still, but it's now gone beyond that point and become brazenly flagrant and depressingly routine. There are, of course, honest judges and referees who love the sport and do a really good job, but it just takes a relative handful of villains to sully the process. Unfortunately, due to the subjective nature of judging a prize fight, dishonesty is extremely difficult to prove. The media like to say that bad decisions are a case of corruption or incompetence. That's merely a cop-out to keep the lawyers at bay. It does nothing to remedy the situation. Yes, on occasion incompetence is the culprit, but it's no coincidence that the house fighter is almost always the beneficiary of such outrageous officiating. Unjust decisions reinforce the impression that boxing is a crooked game and discourages new fans and alienates the older ones. But because the most disturbing trend is how cynical we become that bad decisions are just part of boxing, there is the usual flurry of disapproval in the aftermath of such a scenario of a bad decision. But that soon goes away until the next travesty. During a broadcast on the 20th of April this year, Teddy Atlas let go with a diatribe about some terrible officiating in several recent bouts, with an impassioned outburst ripping into the officiating of several recent fights. Evidently, shining a spotlight on the issue is not going to solve much. Any official who would fix a fight probably doesn't care less what anybody thinks anyway. They are driven by greed and have no regard whatsoever for fair play. If boxing is ever to rid itself of corruption, there have to be consequences for the perpetrators. Atlas and many others believe that a federal boxing commission is what is needed, but I'm not so sure. Most of the elected officials in America accept campaign contributions from special interest groups. If the government ran boxing, we would probably be trading one set of scoundrels for another. I have a suggestion. Let's stop pussyfooting around and start calling these so-called controversial decisions what they are, and that's fixed fights. The hard truth is, if you don't define the problem correctly, you don't have a chance of solving it.